And it's like, to kind of like hear like you have nobody to answer to, it kind of like puts you in a position where you can think like, well, if I ain't got nobody to answer to, if I can do whatever the hell I want to do.
What makes you think I have nobody to answer?
Whatever comes to my mind, I can just do it.
Yeah, but you see, that's another one. That's more of this kind of cultural misinformation that Matt was talking about before. The idea, part of the way religion makes you dependent upon itself, and that is the job of religion. Religion wants believers who are dependent upon the religion for pretty much everything in their lives. For their sense of personal security, for their sense of what they think might be right and wrong. Religion, it sounds kind of melodramatic and, like conspiracy thinking to say it wants to control you, but, in a simplistic sense, that's kind of how it is. Religion wants you to be dependent on it. Like, if you, say in some relationships where you have a husband and a wife, and the husband's very domineering, and he wants the wife to be totally dependent on him and not have her own life. It's a similar situation to that. So one of the ideas that religion has sort of put out there in this culture is that in terms of right and wrong and what you can and can't do, if there isn't a God, well then maybe that must mean you have no one to answer to, and therefore you have no limitations on your behavior, you can do whatever you want. And of course that's wrong. For one thing, and we have to live with one another. We have to get along in our society unless we just want total chaos and riots in the streets, right? And so,
but this is what I'm saying. Why would we have to? We have nobody to answer to. It's like why
because we have each other.
Why would I care about your feelings, or why should you care about my feelings? You know what I'm saying?
Well, because we have each other to answer to in a culture, and it's not just about. We are a species that live together. With one. We're not like great white sharks that swim around all by themselves. We actually have to get along with each other because that's the kind of being that we are as people. We're social. And we survive because we form these social contracts with each other. You have friends, you have family, you have co-workers, and then you have the community at large. It all scales up. So we all have to answer to each other. And, if you look at what happens with people who think like what you're suggesting, well, I can just go and do whatever I want. I can go and do bad stuff and it doesn't matter. And what do they find usually happens to them? They get picked up by the cops, get arrested, go to jail. So evidently it does matter.
I mean, but that honestly, if there's nobody to answer to, it's like, we won't see nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's all good to do that. It's all good to go rob and steal and do all that, regardless of what the law said.
Yeah, but if the law picks you up and puts you in jail, then, you can sit there in your jail cell all day long trying to convince yourself that what you did was fine and good. But if you've had your freedom taken away and then you've had your rights taken away because you're a convicted felon, then, if that doesn't get the message across to you, then I don't really see what will. Most people, it's natural for us to get along. It's a lot of people talk about, well, what could I do, what could I not do, depending on what I believe or what. But really, when you get right down to it, this whole idea that morals simply come from following authority doesn't really work, because if that were the case, if it were simply about, well, this is only right and wrong because there's a God or an ultimate authority that says it's right or wrong, then think about it. If that ultimate authority or God or what have you one day just said, well, I declare it to be morally right and for everyone to kill their own children, and so I command you to do this, well, would it be the right thing to do? Would you turn around that day?
In my eyes, of course, it would never be right to kill a child.
Well, see, there you go. See, there you are.
You don't need a God to determine what's moral, because if your God came to you and said, kill your kids, you'd say, no, that's wrong. Because
I'm saying, honestly, I would think that, I would think it's wrong, but, God wouldn't, I take that back. God would just like he did with the ram and all that stuff and the bush and stuff. But
the thing is,
if he would have come to me personally and tell me something like that, of course, I'd do it hands down.
You do what?
Right,
you wouldn't do it?
I would do it.
You would do it?
Yes, I would.
You would kill your kid if God told you to?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, then you're beyond hope. You're an immoral person who doesn't understand that you are your own moral authority. In much the same way that your first instinct was to say, this is wrong and I wouldn't do it, why would you ever worship some God that would tell you to do something like that?
But he hasn't told me to do
He hasn't
something
told you
like that.
yet. He hasn't told you yet, David, but you just admitted that if he did, you would do it. And
That's
that
thinking
makes
in the
you...
world sense. That's thinking in the world sense. That's not thinking on the spiritual level. I'm not thinking on the spiritual level.
I don't give a damn about the spiritual.
But if it's in the world sense and I'm not thinking about God, that God don't exist, of course I'm not going to do it. Because for what? Who are you?
David, I don't give a damn about the spiritual level. I'm talking about...
I know you don't give a damn about the spiritual level because you don't believe in that.
That's correct.
You
I'm
want
talking
hell
about...
with your eyes open.
That's correct. I'm talking about reality. And in reality, it is my view that it is wrong to murder your kid. And in reality, it is your view that it's wrong to murder your kid. And yet what you've just said is if this authority figure that you worship were to tell you to do that, you would do it and think that it was good.
I won't think twice of it. Yes, I would do it.
Well, then you have sacrificed your humanity, your self-respect, your decency, and your moral authority to some being.
We're not here
to
forever,
some
man.
being.
This is only a pit stop. We're not here forever. So if fucking humanity,
You're not anywhere forever.
Shut up, bitch.
All right, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
How can you know?
Try to get him to think, and it all just breaks down.
I don't believe you'd actually do that, but the fact that you admitted it and then don't see the problem with it. I mean, how can you possibly think like that? Christopher Hitchens had talked about, and we talked about earlier about, the woman who would perhaps kind of like for some of this to be true. I don't. Yeah. Not for any religion I've heard. I'm not just picking on Christianity. For no religion have I heard that I would wish that it was true. Yeah. That I would never wish that I get to the end of my life and find out that this 70, 80, 90, 100 years, whatever, was some kind of cosmic frickin' joke, and that the real life starts after I die. That's how you form a death cult, which is what most of those religions end up being. Yeah. I would never worship or revere any being that I didn't, I am the ultimate judge of what I consider to be moral and immoral. And any being who perhaps I respect and admire, who comes to me and says, you need to kill your kid. My answer is, you need to go to hell.
Yeah, screw you. Oh, it's not. This, David, I should point out, this is not the first Christian caller that we have heard from who has said this.
Not even close.
You tried to pin them down on some consistency on this whole idea that morals have to come from a God. God is an absolute authority figure. Okay, well then what if this absolute authority figure told you to do X that you consider to be morally reprehensible? You would be surprised, but he is not the first guy who has said, well then yeah, I do it. And that right there, I think, points to the whole problem of this idea of morality coming from authority. I think I can say pretty conclusively, Christianity has no morality. What Christianity has is obedience to authority.
Yeah.
That's really all it's got. And it has that as a substitute for morality. It simply takes for granted that there's this all-powerful being, all-knowledgeable being, who, because he is omniscient and omnipotent, just would never ask us to do anything bad anyway.
Yeah, despite evidence.
Yeah, and because Father knows best, as it were, so David, we can simply allow him to do our thinking for us.
David, if you're God,
it's intellectual. I'm sorry, I was just going to say this is indicative of the whole intellectual and moral laziness of Christian fundamentalism. You abdicate morality in favor of just obedience to authority.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I think I would agree with you that David, if he were confronted with that situation, probably would not do what he says that he would do. But he is in this sort of feedback loop of confusion that his religious indoctrination has put him into.
Hey, David, if your God comes and says that it's okay for me to make you my slave, would you do it?
No.
Would you? I mean, it's one thing to say you'd kill your own kid, but would you do that if God said it's okay? Because I'm pretty sure that if you go look at your holy book, you'll find that the God you believe in supposedly said that.
Kind of okay with the whole idea.
But, if you're fine with that, then, you have no moral sense. You're just an automaton following whatever the guy in charge says. Oh, he's the one. He said it's okay. I'm going to go kill. Oh, that's right. I'll be your bitch. Be a man. Be a real human being. Take responsibility for your actions. Take pride in your accomplishments. Understand that, yeah, it's okay to say, this is wrong. Absolutely, under no circumstances do I find this acceptable. I don't care if you call yourself a god or not. This is wrong. Mm-hmm. And until you break free of that, until you recognize that it's okay to do that, not only okay, it is essential. It is a critical to the progress of humanity that people wake up from these delusions where they have sacrificed everything about themselves in order to walk lockstep with some dick of an authority that doesn't even exist. I mean, this is, somebody said, somebody on high said this, and I'm going to, it's not like you're getting the instructions from anybody real.
And it always falls back on the same question. Well, then if God told you to do X, which you have already said you think is wrong, would you do it? If you say yes, then morality doesn't really matter to you. You're all about obedience to authority. And finally, last word on this, because let's get one more guy in here in the last 7 minutes.
Yeah,
but,
less than 7. But.
Every fundamentalist Christian that I've ever talked to says that salvation is by faith and not works. So, why do you even bring up morals at all? Because it really doesn't matter if that's the case. Morals are utterly irrelevant to Christianity and to your salvation if salvation is just by faith and not works anyway. So it's all a lot of hot air, any Christian argument for morality.